In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. In this third video, we'll be talking about third quality indicator of KHDA, which is how good are the teaching, learning, and assessment. So there are three areas or 3 points or things which will be concentrated or which will be judged by the experts. You also need to keep these 3 points in your mind. First of all, we are going to discuss teaching. We'll be talking about 4 levels of teaching: outstanding teaching, good teaching, acceptable teaching, and unsatisfactory teaching. How your teaching can be outstanding. If all teachers know their subject very well, they know how to teach them and how students will learn. All teachers, and they must know their subject very well to get outstanding level. Lessons are planned imaginatively and very skillfully. Resources are deployed creatively. Here the key word is creatively, which shows some sort of creation, innovation, something new, which helps students learn more. Teachers' interaction with students ensure that they are always active participants. Consequently, students make excellent progress. Here the key word is excellent progress. And teachers should ensure that the students are always active participants. Teaching strategies very successfully meet the individual needs of students. Teachers have high expectations and provide very challenging work. The development of inquiry and critical thinking skill is a norm. Without critical thinking, there is no concept of class. If all teachers know their subjects very well, they plan their lessons imaginatively and very skillfully, and they use resources creatively, and they make it sure that all the students are always active participants, and the students are making excellent progress. Teaching strategies are being used very successfully in the classes, and the work which is given by the teacher is very challenging work, and critical thinking skill is a norm. Your school will get outstanding level when it can be good. If almost all, here experts did not write the word all teachers. If almost all teachers know their subject well, they know how to teach them and how students will learn. Most of the teacher must know their subject very well to attain good level. Lessons are planned skillfully and resources are deployed effectively. Teachers' interaction with students ensure that they are active participants. Consequently, students make good progress. Here students may not be making excellent progress just like the students of outstanding schools, but they must make good progress to achieve good level. Teaching strategies meet the individual needs of students well. Teachers have good expectations and they provide challenging work. The development of inquiry and critical thinking skill is a priority. If your teachers have all these qualities, your school will attain good level when it can be acceptable. If most teacher knows their subject well, they know how to teach them and how students will learn. A few teachers may not know their subject very well, even then your school will be acceptable. Your teaching will be acceptable. But most of the teachers must know their subject well. Lessons are planned in most classes. Appropriate range of resources are deployed. Teachers' interaction with students ensure that they are mostly active participants. Sometimes they may not be very active participants, but most of the time students must be active participants. Consequently, students make steady progress. If your students don't make steady progress, your teaching will not be acceptable. Teaching strategies meet the individual needs of students satisfactorily. Teachers have appropriate expectations and provide appropriate challenge. The development of inquiry and critical thinking skill is a developing feature. Unsatisfactory. More than a few teachers don't know their subject well. They don't ask questions to check understanding of students. Lessons are monotonous and poorly planned in most classes. Resources are not used appropriately. Teachers' interaction with students rarely ensure that they are active participants. Consequently, students make too little progress. Too little progress is not acceptable. Teaching strategies fail to meet the individual needs of students. Teachers have low expectations and don't provide enough challenge. There is little development of inquiry and critical thinking skill. If more than a few teachers of your school don't know their subject well, their lessons are monotonous and poorly planned, and if resources are not used appropriately in the classes, and teachers' interaction rarely ensures that students are active participants, and if students are making too little progress, if the teaching strategies of your teachers fail to meet the individual needs of students, and enough challenge is not given to the students, if even there is little development of inquiry and critical thinking skill, your school will be unsatisfactory. Students' learning, second aspect. When your school can be outstanding. Students are enthusiastic and take responsibility for their own learning in sustained ways for a long time. They communicate their learning very clearly and make clear and meaningful connection with other learning and use them in real life to deepen their understanding. They use their lessons, they use their knowledge in their real life to deepen their understanding. Students are independent learner. This is the key concept. They use ICT effectively to support their learning. Critical thinking skill is an intrinsic part of their learning. When your school can be good. If students enjoy and take responsibility for their own learning, they take steps to improve their weaknesses. They communicate their learning well and make clear connection with other learning and relate and connect these well to the real world. Most students are independent learners. Almost all students may not be independent learner, but to attain good level, most of your students must be independent learners. They must use ICT to support their learning. Critical thinking skill is a common feature of their learning. It may not be very important feature, just like the students of outstanding school, but critical thinking skill must be a common feature of students' learning. When your school can be acceptable in case of students' learning. Students have positive attitude towards learning. They can work for short periods without teachers' help. They try to improve their work. At least for short periods, your students must be able to work independently without teachers' help. If they can do it, your school will be acceptable. They can discuss and explain their learning to others well. They can make a few connections between new and previous learning. They don't relate, or they cannot relate, or they cannot connect learning enough to the real world. Even then your school will be acceptable. But they must be able to make a few connections between new and previous learning. Majority of the students are independent learner. Most use ICT in a limited way to support their learning. Critical thinking skill is a developing feature of their learning. It is developing. Even then your school will be acceptable. But when it can be unsatisfactory. If students lack interest in learning, they rarely work without teachers' constant help. If they need constant help of their teacher to work, then your school will be unsatisfactory. They don't know how to improve their work. They find it difficult to discuss their learnings. They don't relate. They don't connect learning to the real world. Most of the students are not independent learners. They lack ICT skills to support their learnings. Critical thinking skill is underdeveloped. If your students lack interest in learning, they rarely work without teachers' constant help. They don't know how to improve their work. They find it difficult to discuss their learning. If they cannot connect their learning to the real world, if most of them are not independent learner, and if critical thinking skill is underdeveloped, then your school will be unsatisfactory. Assessment. When your school can be outstanding. A thorough program of assessment including students' assessment of their own learning is used consistently throughout the school. Students' progress over time is tracked very effectively. Assessment information is very accurate, and is analyzed in depth. Teachers have a thorough knowledge of students' strengths and weaknesses. Thorough knowledge. Teachers provide very effective support and feedback so students are clear how they can improve. Assessment information is used very effectively by staff to meet the learning needs of all groups of students. If you have all these qualities, your school will be outstanding. When it can be good. If there is an effective program of assessment, students are also involved in assessing some aspects of their own learning. Students' progress over time is tracked effectively. Assessment information is accurate. It may not be very accurate, but assessment information must be accurate and is analyzed well if you want to attain good level. Teachers have good knowledge of individual students' strengths and weaknesses. Teachers provide effective support and feedback so students are clear how they can improve. Assessment information is used effectively. It may not be used very effectively, just like in outstanding schools, but assessment information must be used effectively if you want to attain good level. When it can be acceptable, if there is an acceptable program of assessment, students are also involved in evaluating their learning. Students' progress over time is tracked accurately. The analysis of data may be underdeveloped. It may not be fully developed, but it should be developing. Teachers have some knowledge of individual students' strengths and weaknesses. Teachers provide support and feedback, and students are told how they can improve. Assessment information is used adequately. Here the key word is adequately, by staff to meet the learning needs of all groups of students. Unsatisfactory. The program of assessment is not well developed. It is mostly based on internal tests. Students are rarely involved in evaluating their learning. Students' progress over time is not tracked accurately. There is little analysis of data. Little analysis of data is not acceptable. Teachers don't have sufficient knowledge of individual students' strengths and weaknesses. Teachers must have sufficient knowledge to attain acceptable level. Students are not given sufficient support and feedback on their performance. Assessment information is not used enough by staff to meet the learning needs of all groups of students. If you are facing this situation, your school will be unsatisfactory. If you want to watch my other videos on my other quality indicators of KHDA, you can visit my channel on YouTube, or you can visit my particular website which is made for the quality indicators of KHDA. The website is www.khdadxb.wordpress.com. Thanks for watching. I suggest you to watch this video more than 2 times. Thanks again. Goodbye.